Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live webinar today about Enterprise Agile, DevOps, and Continuous Quality. We are presenting today from Micro Focus our point of view about this very important topic to enterprises around the world, and now here especially with the Nordic perspective, how do we see these topics? My name is Jukka Kortesniemi, and I'm the sales leader at Micro Focus in the Nordic region. And as a brief introduction to the topic, why we selected this topic for the webinar today is that we actually hear this a lot from our customers today. The senior management is really looking for better visibility into software development. What is the quality of the software, how the resources are utilized, how the teams are working together in this agile and DevOps mode, and how the costs are governed across the software development. And today with me, we have a great team from Micro Focus. We have Kim and Jerry, and I will let Jerry now to go through the agenda with you, and we'll start the webinar.
Thank you very much, Jukka. Hello, everybody. My name is Jerry Salemakers. I'm a sales engineering manager for Nordics and Netherlands for our IT management solutions. And I would like to welcome you today to our seminar. Before we really head in, let's quickly have a look at the agenda of today. So Jukka just did a little introduction. Very soon after the agenda slide, I will kick off with a little setting the scene, and I'm calling it here, there's a better alternative. So hopefully that'll be clear what that's all about. Then I will hand over to my colleague who will really have a very interesting session on Team Agile, what's next, together with some live demo use cases in ALM Octane. Then we'll come back to you for some Q&A questions you may have, and we can have an open discussion and conversation before closing the seminar today. So the speakers for today, you already saw Jukka in the introduction. We also have my colleague Kim Westergaard, who is one of our expert sales engineers in the Nordics. So he will take care of the second part. Now, before going there and going really more in depth, I would like to set the scene a little bit with an introduction for you. And I would like to start with, looking at today's world. And today we all realize that the demand for software-based innovation has never been higher. Companies need to deliver services that provide end value as quickly as possible with a minimal cost, and at the same time make sure they satisfy their customers, their end users. And you could kind of call it a bit of a software-driven renaissance, or I called it a revolution on this slide even. And this revolution, it's really disrupting the existing business models at multiple levels. And I'm very sure that, if you look at your own company that you're working in, that you are involved with some specific projects and goals in your organization to support this really software-based innovation. Because, the bottom line is software is really the business. Without the software, a modern business cannot compete in today's digital economy. And the disruptions that you see are actually at multiple levels, what I said. For example, if you look at the methodology, waterfall, what we used to do decades ago, it's still there today, but it got accompanied by iterative development, by agile methodologies, by DevOps practices. If you look, for example, on the application level, from the monolithic, isolated applications that we still have today, they are joined by client-server applications, by multi-tier microservice applications, and so on. And on the infrastructure part, it's as complex or as challenging as on the two other ones, going, from, I would say, mainframe and open systems to virtualization, cloud-driven, and even cloud-native infrastructure. And all of that really imposes some challenges to today's organizations. And those challenges, I summarized on the next slide for you. You can actually look at them as three main challenges. First of all, feasibility. How will you really have a good view on the actual project status? Looking at everybody who's collaborating in that project, different agile teams that have multiple issues, work items, and so on. have a good view and visibility into the truth, and be able to break down this into progress and quality. Second challenge, velocity, or we often call it speed as well, right? Maybe you have teams that work in an agile way and they're very good at it. How do you manage to scale this throughout a big organization, going beyond just the team level? If you fail to do that, you will miss deadlines, you will have misaligned outcomes, and at the end of the line, low quality. Okay. So the third one, obviously, quality, always been our bread and butter at Micro Focus ADM solutions. But what we see is that very often organizations are sacrificing quality in order to go faster. You know, kind of the need for speed is causing quality to decline. And what does that mean? It means that at the end of the line, also your customer satisfaction will go down. So how would you solve this? You know, how organizations are solving this, they're looking really to build a hyper-connected delivery platform. Apology for the typo if you don't see it, delivery anyway. So organizations today are really streamlining their application delivery by building a platform which has multiple capabilities, going from ideation, planning and governance, all the way up to operations, of course, with development and testing and deploy and release in the middle. And all these capabilities need to be interconnected, integrated. And this slide kind of gives a high-level overview of these different capabilities. And of course, Micro Focus has solutions in all of those domains, going from portfolio management with Micro Focus PPM, all the way up to, you know, test automation with tools like UFT, security, tools like Fortify, all the way up to operations with, for example, our SMAX service management solutions. Now, what you see at number 2 is a very big block in the middle. It's kind of the glue that ties it all together. This is the life cycle management piece, taking care of, you know, linking all these components together and giving you the visibility into what's happening in application delivery. And this is actually the focus of today's webinar, because that's the playing field of ALM Octane. And for those of you who don't know what ALM Octane is, I put together a very little definition for you as well. Micro Focus ALM Octane, and it says it in a nice blue box on the next slide. ALM Octane is really an integrated management platform, which include multiple capabilities like scaled agile management, but also continuous quality and delivery optimization. It supports organizations' enterprise delivery initiatives with high quality criteria, and on the entire application lifecycle, going from ideation all the way up to operations. And on the bottom, you see kind of, you know, all the high-level capabilities that ALM Octane has. Now, what's important to remember is the 3 ones in the middle, 3 main points. ALM Octane really allows to connect teams, to collaborate better, and to improve visibility and governance. It's what we call connecting the dots, okay? At the same time, it helps you to establish efficient processes with a complete traceability, allowing you to have an accelerated velocity, okay? And also, of course, because it's our bread and butter for decades, we make sure that quality is built in, embedded into the entire solution from beginning till the end. Now, when I say connecting the dots, maybe you're imagining all different dots. So I actually made a drawing of those different dots that we connect. And those dots are actually along the application lifecycle, going from portfolio planning or ideation even, all the way up to production. And they encompass things like, you know, requirements, features, user stories, quality stories, developer commits, developer branches, CI pipelines, but of course also tests, defects, vulnerabilities that come out of security testing. All these dots need to be connected to have a good visibility and to make sure that you have embedded quality, because quality is really everywhere along these different dots. And that's exactly what ALM Octane does. It gives you visibility into all of these dots and connects them together to have a really good visibility. Okay. Now, typically at this point of my presentation, if I would present this, at your premise, for example, pre-COVID times, there would be somebody in the room that really gives me a remark. And the remark I often get at this point is actually about another tool, which is commonly used. And this remark is, we use Jira. And Jira maybe doesn't solve all these issues and these challenges that you're mentioning, but for us, there's really no better alternative. So we use Jira. Now, what my answer would be at that point, in general, the answer from Micro Focus, and also kind of the title of this section, there is a better alternative. And this alternative, of course, is ALM Octane. And in order really to give you a bit of more depth to why we think that this is a better alternative, let's have a look at actually the capabilities that an organization is typically looking at on the next slide. And you see those in blue, right? And it starts, of course, with, identity management, being able to, with a certain role as a certain persona, access different parts of a solution, right? Going into lean requirement management, maybe, with typical requirements, going into agile management, backlog, team management, and so on. Everything around quality and testing and following up on testing, and actually scaling all of this into enterprise agile, going beyond the agile team. And then all of that needs to have good reporting and dashboarding in it. Those are typical capabilities that a customer, an organization is looking for. And when they say we use Jira, what they actually mean is they use Jira plus a whole bunch of, I would say, tools that come with the Jira core solution, and all kind of plugins as well on top. And you see some at the top of my slide here. Real Jira software, the core functionality is actually pretty much limited to the agile management part. So if you want to do multiple different things like lean requirement management with R4J, or quality management, you need third-party plugins like X-Ray, like Zephyr. And if you want to do enterprise agile, you need another part of their solution. Whereas on our side, on the bottom, you see that almost all of these capabilities that are listed here are a core part or a standard part of ALM Octane, meaning it's a really single native application delivery platform. And to summarize some differentiators of ALM Octane, I summed them together in a few of the bullet points here. Kim, if you can give it a click, please. So instead of having all kind of third-party add-ons needed for some basic quality management features, we have embedded quality built in, out of the box in our solution. Scaling agile beyond the team and going enterprise agile is really also embedded and certified into the product. I'm also coming back on the flexibility that we offer when it comes to licensing for different personas. And of course, our solutions can scale from team throughout enterprise with a really verified, tested scalability and performance. To come back onto one point very briefly, and that's the enterprise scaled agile support. Some of you, and pretty much a lot of you, I guess, are familiar with SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. And this slide just shows you that we are actually a scaled agile partner, gold partner even, and also a platform partner for the SAFe platform. And we support SAFe on all the levels. So not just on the team level, which is on the bottom, but we really allow you really to scale up onto large solutions, portfolios, agile release trains, and so on. So the full SAFe is supported by Micro Focus. Quickly going on to the flexibility in licenses that I mentioned as well. We offer different, I would say, flavors, depending on the persona and the use case that you're looking at, whether it is more project-focused use case that you're having, or it's really a product focus. We offer developer licenses that are really targeted for developers that really have preference to use their own tools, their own IDEs, but also, of course, need to follow up in agile management and follow up on tasks and work items that they have. This goes into the professional and the enterprise licenses, more targeted towards quality teams that really build, maintain, execute, and report on the tests, but also, the directors that really need key metrics and visibility and reporting on key metrics at the product level rather than at the project level. So very flexible when it comes to, consumption of licenses based on your personas and use case. Maybe at this point you're thinking like, hey, this really looks interesting, but how can we get help in starting to use this solution? How can we get help maybe in migrating? And of course, if you know Micro Focus, you also know that we have professional services that can really help you to have a personalized migration experience. They can help you to design, architect migrations from, for example, Jira to ALM Octane. Do the full implementation of ALM Octane for you, performing the migration, and even coaching and onboarding all the users and the admins. So we can help you really to work together to have a steadily stepped approach with a fast cutover and an accelerated adoption. And the proof in the pudding, it's always the eating, they say, and quite a lot of our customers, they are eating our solution, and they are already using ALM Octane. And on the next slide, there's a list of those customers. And of course, it's not a full list. I just put some together that have actually made the move to use ALM Octane. And really, on our website, microfocus.com, you can read a lot of other user stories and success stories of our customers that really show that the customers are meeting their objectives, producing faster, having more quality, and having an increased visibility. So before I head over to my colleague, some takeaways that I actually talked about. First of all, ALM Octane has built-in quality. It helps you really to have the velocity you need. On the next slide, Kim, to have the velocity you need and have a view on all the capabilities for QA and developers. So they can collaborate better, they can work on the issues in a better way, and have a decreased time to resolution. More than quality, it also has a simple way to have traceability and visibility with the built-in backlog and agile management that we have in ALM Octane, with a very simple backlog migration capability. And this all will scale throughout the enterprise, supporting SAFe, supporting enterprise agile, that allow you to manage backlogs, not just at the team level, but also at the product level, with very high traceability and tracking capabilities. That concludes my little intro. I would now like to introduce our expert sales engineer, Mr. Kim Westergaard. Please, Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jerry. And what a nice introduction. I think it really hit the point on where Octane is going and where it's positioned today. So what I'm going to show you now is kind of a, let me just see if I can get this to work. It's kind of a inspirational thought, give you a little bit to think about if you are actually doing this inside your companies. Because what I've experienced a lot is that whilst a lot of companies are moving to Agile, and they are also moving to enterprise Agile and adopting the bigger frameworks, they are not really getting the benefits of that journey because, well, certain things that I would like you to discuss here over the next little slide deck thing I have done here. So it actually kind of starts that on the team level. So on the team level, most of you, I think, are already doing Agile, and you're potentially also so really good at it. But and the team Agile really consists of the basic structure of you have a product backlog, you have product owners that actually control those backlogs, and are modifying that into sprint backlogs that the team, in case, are transforming into their sprint cycles. They are working towards their small iterative goals with normal traditional things like Scrum or Kanban practices. An additional layer that really has come up the last 5-10 years is, of course, to embed the entire quality aspect into the team Agile also, which for 15 years ago, it was kind of, well, where is the quality part in Agile? That has been seen now that it really needs to be an embedded function into the teams. And I think most of companies are doing that today in their teams also. But my animation here, and that of course go to a sprint demo. It's going to, the team will do their retrospective. Everything will be handled. They will try to be better and more faster and have a better velocity or speed in the next iteration or sprint, whatever you call it. And everything is good, right? And what we are aiming for here is a potential shippable product, a piece of code, some sort of function that actually delivers some sort of value that can be demoed. This is Team Agile, and that's great. That's really good. And most of the teams that are doing Agile, they in themselves think that they are faster, they are more responsive, and they are delivering more value out of the individual iterations. But I will be a little bit blunt to say, who cares? So in reality, there is something that really steers much more the end value that comes out of the whole Agile process than at the team level. It's a whole process. It's a whole ecosystem that needs to fit into this to actually really drive value. And in many cases, you will be just as good off doing waterfall or V-model, normal traditional development, if you don't have the next setups that I will show you here connected into your Agile process. Because whilst that team, when you're doing Team Agile, you are focusing on delivering the best possible product from what you understand. But from an organizational point of view, you really need to go up and be more, you have the whole priority idea of you need to prioritize based on business value. But that business value is, of course, coming through ideas, new business initiatives. It could be huge. It could be legislation from governments that instructs you to do something different, and then go through kind of a funnel down into a prioritized based portfolio of new business initiatives. And here you have, of course, or many will have a portfolio office sitting and organizing and structuring what is it that actually needs to go in rank before others. But even more so, you actually also have a enterprise portfolio management office. And many companies will maybe not have this as a specific place, but it will happen anyhow, because whatever you do, how you are managing your the capabilities you have, the resources that you have, it goes into looking at things like financial expenditures. How are the stock market reviewing your company? Are you moving to CapEx, OpEx models? What is all of that thing? That needs to be governed on a high level. And those deliverables that are being planned to actually be committed to being built, to be planned in for the lower level, is also really you really need to take care of also having the right resources to actually be able to deliver on those business ideas and the prioritization of value that you have done. Because it doesn't matter that you have great ideas if you don't have any resources. And here we are mainly talking about people to actually build these things. And you also need to take care of and think about if we actually need to buy a new delivery truck. And in a delivery truck here is of course not a truck, but it's a new department. It's hiring in new people, adding more capability with outsourcing, insourcing, whatever it is that you need. But all of this, when this is kind of handled, then we are beginning to talk about more tangible things here. You have now even more refined portfolio backlog of initiative that you would like to have. It's not a complete list of what you can do, it's of what you would like to do. And those could be both agile, they could also be waterfall, and will be so in most companies. And it's really here where we are kind of stuck, because how do you go from high-level portfolio backlogs of things and ideas that you would like to, from a business perspective, be able to do, down to an individual product owner that has 2 teams or 3 teams that can build something. And of course, it's here where we have, in most companies, a huge gap. So a huge gap between what is actually happening on the lower end and what is happening on the higher end, and also the prioritizations of this. A lot of the things that the big frameworks are doing, like SAFe and the Spotify and LESS, those models are of course trying to mitigate exactly this. But in essence, what you need is really a way to connect the business value to the execution level. And how we do that, or how we can do that, is of course to structure these business ideas and initiatives into feature backlogs. So a lower level of even more tangible level where each feature is again something that in itself will deliver value to an end customer or an overall product. And these feature backlogs needs a governance model to actually control and manage the flow of this setup. And it's here where we, in the new world, are looking at, again, product owners, architects, DevOps managers, QA managers. And, I've even put in project leaders because these are also a part of the traditional, more waterfall or staged models that are out there. But it's more or less really shown that to really execute on this, to really make a plan that gives the biggest business value out in the end, is to really get everybody together. This is a big thing in the SAFe model, but it has existed for a lot longer time than that, with the whole big room planning process, where you really try to fit everybody together to work on a plan that everybody at the end can sign on off, and then start actually delivering work. These big room planning sessions, whatever framework you're doing, will end up in some sort of release, or if you're using SAFe, a program increment, that in the end links down to the individual product owner, individual teams. But it's really here that the biggest part here is that the team should actually focus primarily on building the right way, right? And if we go from the top, if you look up in the little blue thing here that I put in, is that on the business level, the key goal is to invest in the right things. So not if some developer thinks something is cool, but really what is the business in need of. And on the mid-level, it's about building the right things. And on the team level, it's really about building it the right way. And to further on this is that when this is connected, both through processes, but also through tools, you will have metrics. You will have metrics that you can steer on, and you will have metrics that will give you on, especially, which is the big missing part in most corporations, is actionable insights on the portfolio level. That makes the portfolio operator actually aware of what is happening downstream. What is, when we allocate 50 million euros to a project, how much has been spent? How far are we? Do we have other projects that we should actually bet on instead? Are we missing deadlines that will cost us additional fees or money? All of that data is in many companies today buried somewhere down on the team level, where you need to ask for report. It will be given back in PDF shape, PowerPoint, whatever, and not just flowing through the system. And on the mid level, it's really that everybody, both from the top level business value, but also from the team level, can decide only based on facts and data, and not on that somebody thinks that this will be the right way or be the right place right now to bet to actually deliver. And on the low level, it's really about that how we are doing as a development organization, and also is what we are building, is the quality right to the extent that we have been asked to deliver. And furthermore, to the right, and the whole idea about Agile on the team level, if you scale Agile, you still need the key thing, which is feedback loops. So feedback loops is the driving idea behind Agile. It is really that you constantly, every 2 weeks, you are redefining your plan, you are estimating, you are prioritizing your plan every 2 weeks because you have become wiser, you have become better, you have seen what worked, what didn't work, and you can be agile. And agile is also to be able to shift or to pivot, to go something else, leave something, do something else. That is really a key. And it's a key on all levels if you're going for enterprise agile. And feedback loops really drives predictability, proactiveness, and decision making on all different levels. There's just a lot of enterprises that are not having this kind of metrics, these kind of processes built into the entire life cycle. And another thing is really that quality today, it's not about testing, a manual tester. It's not about a QA engineer. It's not about a stage gate model or something. The quality is what the end goal is. Quality is equal business value. You cannot deliver something in bad quality where you will achieve the business value that you thought of. And remember, quality is not that all quality, all things are the same quality. Sometimes you are aiming for a perceived low quality product, but then the price is also lower. But in development, quality really you should strive for. It's a quality both in the process, in the code, in the testing practices, and in the product. And that is really what we strive to do with Octane. we really strive to make all of this available with our platform and make it easy, visible for everybody, and a joy to work with. And that is something that we will like to demo I will like to demo in the little demo section that I have prepared for you. But otherwise, this was kind of a little history, a little blueprint on both what you should strive for, but also what we actually think we can help you with our product, mainly Octane, ALM Octane. So with that, the end of my little section here. And moving forward to a little bit about something, because we are what can we say, because we are Micro Focus and our legacy, we are really being most of perceived as the quality vendor. But we are really trying to move from quality as something which is testing. Quality is not testing. When we are talking about application quality, it is really, again, as I mentioned before, also quality in all the different processes. It's about code quality. It's about the release and deployment structure and processes are actually conducive of good quality in the end product. And without a doubt, the most important thing is potentially the quality of the plan that you're doing. If you don't have a good plan, you will never get there. I think most will agree to that. So in the next couple of demos here, I will actually try to show how we, from Octane point of view, can work on the three different, I can say, levels. So the use case, a use case about management and planning, a use case on how you will work on the team level as a team member in an agile team in 2021, and then also a use case, because we are and we have these huge capabilities on quality, how a QA team or a QA engineer can work inside Octane. And I'm actually stating here that it's a demonstration of ALM Octane from A to Z, but it will actually more be from D to U, because what I will show you today is maybe 50% of what ALM Octane can and is about. There's lots of things like connectivity to developer IDEs, requirement management, that we will not touch on today, because we simply doesn't have time. But I hope you still will find it relevant and interesting from the demos here. And I have to disclose that I had actually planned to do all of this live, but under my little testing of the systems, I found it to be very slow when I'm streaming this through WebEx. So my platform simply didn't respond as it should. I'm running on local VMs and things like that. So I have recorded here in the weekend. I have recorded videos of my flow. So you will get the next best thing, but you will still see me on a recorded demo. So I hope they will work as expected. So from the demo use case 1, which will be about management and planning as a product manager, or if you are in the safe terminology for a release train engineer, you need to manage your feature backlogs. You need to keep track on current and coming PIs, and be able to estimate and plan in based on your feature sets. This is the use case number 1. So let's see how that will run. I can get a little. So here, from when you log into ALM Octane, which is, by the way, is fully browser supported, so you can no more clients or whatever. Let's log in, and you can here see the different modules that we have inside Octane, where we will concentrate in this demo on the main backlog. So we could call it the product backlog area, the feature backlog area. And you can see we have the ability to work on program level. So we can actually tag in whole structures to a specific program, which match the safe terminology. We also have the to run with program increments. This is actually a safe enabled workspace in Octane. So you can see the name Program Increment. And we can see to the left, we have our backlog. And in this case, it's a backlog consisting of epics. We have 5 epics that are consisting of X number of features underneath. So this is simply just a tree structure of your backlog. And you can see that if you drill down, you can see that we can see all the features that are inside this scope. We can see all the backlog items, which would be stories and defects, and also all the tests that are covering our feature and backlog set of artifacts. On the feature set here, of course, we also have on each of the backlog many items here. We have a full range of dashboards. So you can see we can actually very easily, as a product owner, go in and actually drill into a specific epic to see all of the things that happens underneath an epic. To, for instance, see which tests are failing, and all of these things are, of course, interactive. So if you want, you can click on a specific part of the graph and see all the failed tests in a specific area of the application that has relation to the epic or the full backlog that you are standing on. But let's go up now and actually try to drill into a specific program increment. And this is one of the things that you can drill into. You can see we have Agile Release Train 1 and 2, but we could also go in and plan for a new increment. So we could just say, I would like to view only the artifacts that has no program increment, and go to the feature set that is still not planned. And this is actually my candidate list for planning in a new PI. And here we can work with WishDF scores, which is calculated automatically. When you input data, you can work, if you look here, if you work on open up a feature, you can, of course, set all of the individual details. You can see the relations that a specific feature has. It could be, for instance, to learn a little bit about the non-functional requirements or the functional requirements that are covering this. It could be a legal document that you need to take care of or be aware of when you're actually trying to estimate and planning this in. And you can, of course, also do reordering, prioritization, ranking very easily just by moving things up and down here. And you can also, if you are working with agile practices, you maybe are used to using t-shirt sizing, things like that, to actually go in and say, how big is this feature? We think it's, from a product perspective, we think this is a very big thing, this is a smaller thing. To actually create this initial plan. And you can see here that we have built some, I have built this myself, that this t-shirt sizing is representative of some story point levels. So they will be filled out automatically based on rules behind in the system. And you can, of course, also do this in board views. So even this, let's say, t-shirt sizing process, if you would like to do that in a board view, so you could just go in and create a board that is actually showing that specific data. So now we are seeing the board with the different t-shirt sizes. You can drag them up and down. You can have a workshop, a feature planning workshop, where you can sit with your subject matter experts and discuss what is the actual size of these features. And in most cases, this will, of course, be before the developers really come in and actually contribute to this. So this is the initial plan. And for that initial plan, you can see that we have, if we extend the panel here to the right, if I could click on it, you can see we have a planning setup where you can see the individual program increments. You can see information about, you can see all the sprints that we have. And we can see that the teams that are actually a part of that specific sprint. You can also see how many, what was the planned feature estimation, how much is unused, and how much is in process. And the same goes for each iteration on each team. You can see some of these teams are a little bit over allocated, which I would not advise, but they have a hard weekend ahead of them. And you can also see here that in this PI2, they have an unused velocity of increment velocity of 533. So to plan in here, we could go in on the backlog and say, set a red line at 490 story points. So a red line is really to show how many features could we potentially, from the backlog, the ranked backlog, commit to the next PI planning process. And you can see below here, you can actually see how many story points that are included in the red line right now. So we can move things around. We can find the right match for this specific, and think this is actually where we get the best benefit of fitting it into this setup. And you could do, as I do, create this and select the features that you need, and actually go and add them to a phase. And I've created a phase called PI candidate and update it to that specific phase, which will also be shown on boards, and then plan them in to the bucket of the main bucket of that specific PI. So now you can see that we have made ready, that we have X amount of features planned in, 470 story points. So the teams now can go in a big room planning session and begin to drill down on those specific feature sets, create the assets behind, and do their planning. So we can now see here, we can see now, if I go and select only on Agile Release Train 2, then we can see this is their backlog. Their backlog with the, 10 different candidates. And when the developers then begin to, if they already have added things, they could have added stories and defects and quality stories, which is a part of that, those features. And how that process is, it varies a little bit from I can say, company to company. And of course, if you want to do program increment planning, sprint planning, or just reviewing the what can you say, the overall flow. You can do that on boards. So here you can, for instance, see what is actually on a feature set in 2 different releases or as a release trains. You can see what features are being included in which sprints. In this little case, they are only in sprint 1. And you can see the overall workflow. And right now, we are only seeing what is embedded in the Agile Release Train 1 and 2. And you can see that these processes, these phases are something you can control fully yourself as inside your Octane setup. And there is just a lot of features on both these boards and things you can do that we have not touched on at all. But it's important to see that this is really something which is a part of this. It's also, if you have, again, a really nice feature about filtering, we have all the filters readily available for you. So it's very easy to go in and actually filter out, and for the teams to actually begin to plan in what it is that they would like to have in their initial sprints and create their sprint backlogs. And of course, this will, in most cases, be something with the team, the Scrum Master, and the product owners together will decide on. So this is kind of how simple it actually can be to handle these the planning process. And one thing which is I hope you will see later on is the connectivity there is between the entire system, from epic to feature to backlog items to tests to tasks to defects and requirements. So everything is fully interconnected in the platform. And so for the demo use case 1, what we really saw was the ability or the idea of having feature backlogs, having prioritization capabilities, red line capabilities for actually making prioritization easy, things around estimation and planning, to be able to control your agile release trains or your release management with teams and iterations or sprints. And of course, the whole idea of linkage to different artifacts and coverage of, for instance, tests. And all of this is, of course, a part of Octane. It's not, so Octane is really taking the entire process with it. So for demo use case 2, which is the team level, I will try to be a member of Team Checkmark. Team Checkmark, it's one of the teams that I've created. And I'm not only doing coding in my daily work, I also have to create and conduct tests in various forms that proves that we are hitting the quality that we have set out to achieve, and also even more so that we should actually be able to prove that we are keeping up to the quality standards that we have promised our stakeholders. And with this last statement, I really mean about trying to fit or trying to get all the information about what we are doing, how we are coding, what is being covered, what is being and what is being tested with which kind of tests into one platform. So it's not just saying that, yeah, we have tested this user story because I moved my task, I have tested it to done. No, it's the entire link from the individual user story to automated testing, manual testing, to testing that has being conducted on other entities that are what can we say, that are reflecting back on the user story that I'm working on. All of that data in one place, and be able to actually view and get actionable insight and dashboards out of it. So from the team level, we will start where we left off in the last section. And instead of working on the product backlog, I will go to the team backlog. So the team has now created they are working inside a sprint. They have created their sprint backlog, and we are moving ahead to actually achieve that finishing that specific backlog of sprint 1 with team checkmark. And right now I'm simply just saying, because I have access to everything, what is it? What is the scope that I would like to view right now? So it's Agile Release Train 1, Sprint 1, Team Checkmark. And I can now see the board of Team Checkmark, which, by the way, can be modified totally to fit the team's need. And there is, on top of that, ability to do a lot of modification with colors and of course also view this as list or grid view. But we will go back to the board view. That's the agile way, right? So one thing you can see here is actually that we are working not only with user stories. This board is a combination of user stories, quality stories, which is a new thing inside our platform, which is really, and defects. And quality stories, and these 3 artifacts actually doesn't need to follow the same process. So a defect, for instance, cannot go to propose. It really depends. They need to go to in testing, propose, closed, and done. A quality story can only, or user story cannot go to propose closed, because that status is actually a defect status. But you can still manage it on one single board, which really means that you get a full overview, but still you have the underlying business processes as a part. And of course, you can also view your feature lists. You can view your tests that are committed or attached to this specific iteration. And you can also view all of your tasks, all of the, what can you say, work tasks or development tasks that the individual stories has underneath. And here you can simply drag and drop your individual tasks back and forth. So this is a full, what you would see in the agile systems. It's about progress, it's about iteration planning, and handling the day-to-day work. But let's go in and actually try to open up a specific user story. So here you can see lots of different fields. There is very, very easy to, for instance, say, me as a user, I would like to have some more fields available here on the standard form. You can also do, I cannot go into it, but there is so many things you can do in behind this of functions that you need. You can also very easily create your own setup with, for instance, if you want to follow anything, you can very easily say, I would like to be notified if this changes phase or there is a new or edited comment. And I will just be notified here in Octane. So now this is set. Now we are following this specific user story. Relationships is really, it's visualized. You can see here we have manual test suites, there are tasks. There's lots of different things that is connected to this individual user story. And of course, you have underneath the user story, you have this user story's own task board, where you can, as the main thing, you can go in here and add how many hours have you spent, what have you left, which of course is a driver in the burn downs, etc., that you're working on. With the quality stories, which I'm showing here, is really something else than a user story. It's because today there's a lot of work actually not just doing the test, but also creating test assets, creating plans. All of this work also it takes time for an agile team. So of course, these things also need some place, and especially also needs a value. So quality stories are also story point driven, which means that, and maybe I will need to just step back a little bit here. Story point driven. And if we review this, you can see that as I have actually been in here and creating some, if you see here to the right, some scripts for the login. I have created scripts for the profile, automated tests, and I now just moved 2 new tasks into something I should do. So I should run the existing covering test suite, and I should import new scripts to Octane. Okay, so that's actually what I will start doing now. To do so, I will go to the quality module to start with. And inside the quality module, I can review, also as a developer, I can review all the different assets, test assets we have. This can be, and this is really nice, this is any sorts of automated test that you can imagine. It can even be your unit testing. Everything can be placed inside Octane to really grant you the granularity of testing that we need. And here we can actually see that I'm missing some tests. So from, this is UFT, our automation tool. It could be any, more or less any automation framework. I can commit this to a, in this case, Git, so a source repository. I can commit this, and then in Octane, there's been created what we call a connection to those repositories, which means that the second, almost, these are being committed, they are being pushed into Octane as an artifact. They are not stored here. They are stored in full version control inside Git, in this case. But they are being picked up by Octane. So we have the insight for every time these tests are running. We get the results, we get the reports. And as I will show you, we are also have the ability to actually run them directly from Octane. So we don't need to go out to some other test framework tool, or go to Jenkins and find it and run a pipeline, whatever. We have that cleared inside Octane also, if needed. And also very easily, the people with the right roles can go in and manage what we call assignment rules. So when you are, all of you are, let's say you have maybe 500 developers and testers that are constantly contributing with new testing, with new assets, unit tests, whatever. How should that be actually structured? You can easily create assignment rules for tests that are being picked up. And so they are placed in the right modules that they are covering based on rules. So you can say this, if the name is something, if it's from some specific test framework and the package name is X and Y, then place this test inside AOS Cloud Web Client, for instance. And here you can see these 3 I just added suddenly popped up here in my list. So it's external tests that are managed in an external repository, but now I have them inside Octane as a test that I can work with and report on. And in this case, we should actually create a new test suite. So let's create a new test suite based on these new automated assets. So we can easily go and also which backlog item should this cover. I would like to cover this feature with this specific test suite, and then add it in. When doing so, I can of course go in and add the tests that I have in my entire repository here, and I will just add in, X number of tests and add it to my test set. And then we can go in and say, hey, we should actually run this in this sprint. So I could plan this test suite to be run in the Agile Release Train 1 in sprint 1, and just click on plan. Then now this new test suite will appear on the team's board for this specific iteration 1. Which I will show you now. So not only you can plan it in, you can of course also track the process, and also track the process of this test suite, which is now linked to a specific feature. The other task was actually to run this existing test suite. And you can see this test suite has been run numerous times. But I would like to run it again. So this is, again, external tests that has been picked up by Octane. And you can see that it's actually running through a CI system, in this case, Jenkins. So you can see the reports are actually based and stored inside Jenkins. But you have all the information inside Octane. So really seamlessly connected together. And if I would like to run this, I don't need to go to Jenkins. I don't need to do anything. I just need to go to my details, click on Run Suite. I will run it as a part of sprint 1. It doesn't matter. And then click Run. What this is actually doing, it's taking the tests, creating a job on Jenkins, sending the assets to a remote machine, and starting the tests that I created, or that I specified here. And now you can see that those are in process. And if we would like to review, you can see this is a remote machine that I have. That the tests are being kicked off, and they are doing some sort of very simple automation here. And if we wait just a second here, the status will be fed back to Octane. So we can review that it's both test has passed. And so now we have actually run these two assignments that we have. And we can of course go down to our quality story here and move our tasks to the next to done here. And to the left, you can see we actually have a new, which is, maybe I should now you cannot see it, which is about something just to actually create, where is this? Or maybe it's just me, it's messing up here. It's just me. I have another quality story. But first, I would like to move this into this the quality story to done, the entire story. And you can see everything updates. And I will run the performance test, which I also have a quality story for. So both creating and running the performance testing for this specific area. And for that, again, I actually don't need to move out of Octane, because I have set up a Jenkins pipeline that are running some performance tests on our LoadRunner cloud. So just by going into the pipeline module and start the job, you can actually see here that it's starting up and conducting X amount of load test scripts. So again, without having to go out of Octane, you can really cover your entire, what can I say, workday. But it's actually, everything here is being driven by Jenkins and Git. But you only need to know that if you like to know that, you could say. So now these tests are also completed. So I can go in and move this quality story also. And I could give Kelly Slater here, which is the owner of story 2056, that you please notice that all the tests has been, all the QA stories are done. And for this specific user story, and she can, well, have a nice day. And by doing so, Kelly here will be notified that that she has a comment here, and she can go in and review what was it that I had to do. It was ensure tests are planned and executed. We can move that and then actually complete this story also. And here we have a different phase setup. So she needs to go in testing to done. And you can see things are rolling up, and people can go home having done a day's work. Yes. And just for the, I mentioned a little bit about development access. Well, if you have, first of all, the development license, it gives access to more or less everything you saw here. So for so the backlog, the team backlog management, like some of the testing capabilities, and the pipeline module, and also the connectivity into the developer IDE. So as a developer, you could just as easy be sitting in your, in Visual Studio or Eclipse and viewing your resources, viewing your comments, viewing your stories, etc. Yes. So for this use case too, we really had the ability to work with, we work with team backlogs, we work with user and quality stories. We work with something called test runners, which is this connectivity between Octane and source repositories and Jenkins, and also assignment rules to actually keep track on all of these different assets. We work with the concept of test suites, CI integration, and automated and performance testing as a trivial native part of doing testing today, which we really need to if we want to have continuous quality, continuous testing. We need to do the shift now and not focus on manual testing. Otherwise, you will not keep up the velocity of your teams, that's for sure. Use case 3. And this is really about not just the QA work that maybe happens as a part of a team, the individual teams, but in most of these frameworks, also for instance in SAFe, there is concepts of QA teams or departments that have some very specific capabilities that is either lent out to the teams or actually are a function that are providing the teams guidance and assets and ways of working. And that is kind of what I'm saying here, that if you have a QA team that is not directly integrating into it's not directly parts of the individual development teams, but are a little bit on the side, this is kind of that setup where you as a QA engineer is working in collaboration with team development teams, and finding defects, taking care of the larger regression tests and frameworks that needs to be set up to really allow everybody, in the entire organization to keep the momentum going and not get, as I say, stuck in long QA phases. We have all seen, at least I have seen, where we have a QA or a regression test that takes 4 weeks to finish with 2-hour sprints or 2-week sprints. It's like, well, how do you actually, then you're always, first time you're 2 weeks back, then you're 4 weeks back, then you're 6 weeks back, because you never get your testing done in the same time frame as the development. This is something we need to fix, and we can fix. So from this point of view, I will have to start this. I will, of course, go to my quality, because if I'm a QA engineer, quality module is my place to be. So this concept of the application module, by the way, is really a way of structuring the quality, to measure quality based on areas in the application you think are important to actually measure quality against. And in doing so, you can also see that each application module, again, you can very easily dig into a lot of different graphs and widgets. There is more than 100 that can be customized, and review what type of test assets are we doing. How are the features, how is it based on features or on story points or whatever. And you can easily, very easy here, you can see, just drill into a specific area of application. What is the quality metrics here? But of course, you can also go in and view the tests that are a part of this. And one of the really nice things is with Octane, maybe you have, I hope you have already seen it, is the usability, the friendliness of everything kind of is there where you expect it to be. So if you want to filter something, it's super easy. You don't need to click a lot of things. You just filter in what you need. And also new things that we have embedded into Octane from a testing perspective is, for instance, gherkin tests. So we can actually build the gherkin test directly into, we have a full IDE here, or what's it called, for gherkin script, or gherkin editor, sorry. So I can go in here and add something to this specific test. And then when I'm satisfied with the test, I can go and commit it and save it and add it to a developer that is handling the BDD framework, for instance, through Cucumber. So when I set this for ready for automation, it will actually be able to be picked up by the developers from their IDE and also download the script automatically. And now I set James Horner here as the designer, a developer. he will get that notification that this is now ready for automation. So he can start doing the setup and connecting it to the BDD framework of choice. Of course, I can also, as a QA person, work with manual tests. So manual test in Octane is more or less what you expect. We have our steps, we have our validation steps, the ability to attach pictures, etc. But something that is really, really nice is the ability to work with built-in data tables. I think data and test data today is like the biggest pain of all. But here we actually have a really, really good built-in setup where you can easily have multiple data tables with multiple data sets that can be controlled from here, or they can be controlled and accessed from external sources. So it's super easy to structure your tests with data inside Octane. And in this case, it's also, if we want to, for instance, add the coverage to a specific story, it's really a no-brainer. So we can actually see now we have 2 stories covering this specific manual test. And we could go and run, make a specific run of this manual test just to show you how it works. Here you can see what is the data set that we'd like to run with. You can even also select version. So all tests are version controlled. But let's just start this manual test. And here you'll get 2 iterations because you had 2 rows in the data table of this very, very short test. And I will just go to my demo site here. We can go in and click. Very simple. What happened? We could review the pictures if we really needed that. We can try to log on with the credentials that are stated in the individual steps based on the data table. And then we can try to sign in as the test directors. So okay, this is not good. It doesn't work. So let's do a screenshot. We'll just use the snipping tool. Paste it into the step. You can see that it had got a little attachment mark here. And then we can fail it. And we could also add a defect. So if we add a defect here, which by the way also could be based on lots of different templates, autofill functions, and all sorts of things. Let's just pick a couple of fields here and add this defect, stop the run. So now we can go directly from this manual test and see what are the runs that we have done. We can open up a specific run and get the report here. And we can see what happened in the iteration 1 and 2. We can review the defect if we want to directly from here. Or, as I will show you, we could go to the issues or defect module. So here we can see all the defects we have. And we can see the relations. And one thing here, I have to pause here, I think. That this defect is linked to a manual run, but it's automatically also linked to the stories that are covering that manual test. So now you already have linked the 2 stories to this specific defect automatically, which is a really good connectivity setup. So you can see here that we already have these 2 stories that has a defect. So somebody will now potentially be alerted already that a test has just run that created a defect against the user story that you are working on. And here again, let's plan this defect in. This is a critical defect. We need to do it right now. It will take precedence of all other work. Let's plan it in to the sprint 1. And we can go again, if we go to the team backlog, we can now see that we have got a defect that we can start working on. And you can say that the process is kind of finalized. Another thing, as a QA engineer or QA person or developer or DevOps specialist is the pipeline module. So in most cases today, the builds, the CI system is the heartbeat of the development or the agile teams. And we have everything here. Everything we have here is coming from the IDEs, the commits, the CI system, and the source repositories. This is simply an aggregation of all of the data that comes from these different sources. And we are just trying to suck it all into Octane to give you the ability to actually act on it. So in this case, I think we have, as you will see, about 10 or 9,000, 7,000 tests running, 8,000 tests running as a part of a CI. And we are modifying that. We are grouping it together, and we are showing who is actually committing code, who is committing code on things that are failing, who is creating defects. All of that is being built into this pipeline module. And if we look here, we have 7,700 tests that are running, and we can go in on each of them and see all of the things that are being committed, who has committed things. We can cluster them, so we can actually go in and say, based on these many thousand tests, what are they covering? Are they all very diverse, different kind of things? Or is 80% of them related to, some specific module or database that are failing or whatever? I did the wrong click there. I think we were here, right? So let's retrace our steps. And also you can see user stories that are being, this is being committed against. Here you can also assign, so you can go in this specific tests. You can assign that to a person. So I will find Andres Tough here, and fix this, whatever. You can also go in and just highlight yourself that I'm on this specific test. Somebody is looking at it, which is a very valuable information inside this structure. And of course, the last step here, or the main point of this, is getting insight. So from our dashboard module, we have all sorts of metrics, lists, setups, requirements without any automated test coverage. Whatever kind of information you would like to have, you can have it here. It's fully customizable and fully we can say, I don't know what. And also here, if you look at some of these, we also have what we call analytics. So some of these reports are really more analytics in that it is something that is driving by constant data. So here we can actually have, for instance, return on automation. How much is things progressing when we are automating against different modules? And the heat maps up here which maybe I should just stop here. The heat maps that we see here to the left, we have more or less, we have customers that are buying Octane just to be able to show these heat maps. And just to understand here a little bit, is individual here is really based on the amount of story points in this case. So the bigger they are, the more story points. And then it's the individual application modules that we are covering, measuring things on. Up here, it's number of open defects. Down here, it's automation per application module. So how much of the testing is automated. So these KPIs are extremely easy to set up. And as you can see, you can very easily drill down and say, why is my performance here? Why is that red? That cannot be. We need to do something. And you can see the things that are in scope of that KPI. And all of this is driven by a very like best in class by far customization setup. So everything here can be modified. You can control the fields. You can control all the rules, the business rules. Maybe I should just give that a little. That these rules, we don't have any real workflow coding. We have business rules that really states what is the system to do, which is really a much easier way of doing it than the traditional way of actually coding it. And on top of that, we can do very easily with all the forms, the fields, and controlling the workflow is a piece of cake. But also the idea of controlling the entire planning phase, program increments, milestones, controlling the teams, even their holiday calendars, we can control inside this. And on the DevOps side, everything is connected, or everything is included. Everything, you don't need to go to any obscure third-party whatever place to download the plugins. Everything is right here. We have all the different kinds of plugins you need, the add-ons, and the help you need is directly added here into Octane's DevOps area. And here you can again modify and see what are the test runners that you have. You can see from framework point of view, we can go with NUnit, Karma, Jasmine, Mokia, Cucumber, NUnit, JUnit, whatever you have, to actually take in all of this data, which is really what Octane, well, I would say it needs all of this data to really bring all, connect all the dots, both from an agile point of view and from a quality perspective. And that was the end of demo use case 3. And here in the last section here, we talked about application modules, which is a new way of seeing quality on. It's not a test set. It's not a test suite. It's not a blueprint of your specific feature set or whatever. It's what is it that you would like to measure quality against? And you can build it up as you want completely. So it fits your needs for monitoring your test assets. Then on test types, I think it's really important that we have more than we have automated testing, manual test, gherkin test, BDD specifications. We have lots of different artifacts with separate capabilities and workflows and processes behind. And of course, traceability and smart, also what we could call smart traceability with automatic linkage on things that actually makes a whole. And of course, the entire pipeline module, which I'm not even sure that I'm, what can I say? I know I'm not a expert in what actually goes on there, because it's actually really development driven. It's the whole CI process that you get insight to, but you are able to couple it with all the artifacts that are inside the Octane platform, which is the real benefit here. And also being able, as a non-CI system expert, to actually understand what happened in the last night's build. And then, of course, metrics, different kinds of metrics in an easy consumable manner. Hey, that was it. That was my my demo completed. Luckily, the videos worked. That was nice.
It was really a lot of information, Kim. It was really nice.
And the problem with Octane is really that I get this a lot with our tools. So can we do this demo in an hour? It's like, yeah, we can. We could also do it in 2 days, because it could take 2-3 days workshop to go through all the different ideas and components and smart things and how to work, because we haven't talked about document reporting. We haven't talked about requirements handling, how to create business flows, how to create individual flows. So some teams are working Kanban style, some are working Scrum-like. Everything is here in the platform.
Yes, and it was still an amazing amount of information you shared. So I can imagine that some people in the audience might have some questions for us, for you in first place, I guess. So please, if you want to ask a question, feel free to switch on your microphone, and if you can also switch on your camera. That would be really cool. If you're really too shy, I think you can always use the chat to ask a question. Anyone, please? Kim, I see a question in chat. I'm not sure if you can see it as well.
No, I cannot.
There's a question from Carlos. Can you explain how ALM Octane leverages commit information?
Yeah, it is really when you connect from your IDE perspective, you can go from the IDE and actually tag and what we say tag out user stories or defects to that you're actually working on them as a part of a specific set of code or specific what can you say, work area inside your code. And when you do the commit, that will be traced back into Octane. So you can see that, and it was shown very briefly on the pipeline report, that you could see that a user that worked on user story something also committed X number of files, modified the code from X and Y. And of course, that is important information, especially when things breaks. You can easily go and find who actually, what can you say, worked on this the past day, but also that Octane are using that information to provide input to who is actually the right person to contact if you have any issues. So for instance, that you suddenly have a big break in some area of your application, Octane will pop up with a most relevant users to say these 4 users has contributed 98% of all the code that has been worked on. So I think we should just redirect the defect to them. And we can even do that based on rule sets, so it will be done automatically. And that's, again, keeping this feedback loop running. So instead of you need to have somebody coming in the morning, reviewing the pipelines, figuring out who is, you can actually have Octane to already assign people to, hey, we think you are the right person to look at this critical issue. And as Carlos mentioned, there is possibly 1,000 other things we do with the commits setup, but I think that has to be for another day.
Excellent. Hey, just to follow up for me, Kim.
Yeah.
If I would be a developer, I might use a tool like Visual Studio, Eclipse, I don't know, IntelliJ. Does it mean I need to log into Octane to do my job, or can I do everything just from my IDE?
As I mentioned, we have plugins for, well, more or less all the big IDEs. So you have all of your, in one of your panes in your IDE, you have a list of all your sprint goals, you have your quality stories, user stories, and defects right there inside the IDE. And you can open them, you can modify them, and work fully inside your own IDE,
Really cool.
but still contributing to the process in Octane.
Excellent. I see a question from Carmen in the chat. Regarding the first use case, you mentioned the RTE, the release train engineer. Do you have insights into test environments or quality status per environment, per story, and also which version it has been tested on?
Yes. First of all, that information is, of course, kind of, it's a two-factor thing. You need to have the different things filled out. You need to have the field sets created to handle some of this information. Product, version, application area is already there. And if you have the connectivity into that the test assets are coming from automated tests, you will have that information about which version that you are running on, for sure. You will also have that if you have a good process for manual testing or gherkin testing, because you can both say on a manual test which version of the script, but also which version of the application that you're actually testing against, you're running against. But of course, if it's manual, if you don't input the data, you you don't get the data back. But from the automated perspective, you can get all of that information feedback from the integrated setup with the pipelines, because that information is available.
Cool, thank you. I see Carmen has another question added. I see myself twice. Anyway, it's related to the start. We present Octane as kind of a life cycle platform going from ideation up to production. So, part of production, of the ops, things like change management processes or production incidents, can we make that visible in Octane or link to tools that have this information?
Well, we can link, of course we can link, and we can integrate, and that's also part of the story. A lot of the things is something we can do inside Octane, but there is also supporting tools, both internal from us, for instance, with PPM, our PPM platform, but also external tools that we easily can integrate with, either through our MF Connect software, which is free to use, but also a full REST API from Octane, where you can actually control more or less everything. So it's very easy to set up a service, or even a hook that actually inside Octane that goes out and tries to retrieve new data from some system and feed it back into Octane and keep that synchronized, these items synchronized afterwards. And inside Octane, you could easily do, for instance, if you have some production defects, you have a system to handle that. You could create specific business rules and flows, how such a defect will go through different phases or what is mandatory, based on that, this is a production type defect. And then it has another flow than a development that is found in development. Very easily done.
Okay, thank you, Kim. You mentioned the concept of business rules, kind of a way, I guess, to create more governance into ALM Octane, right? And,
yes.
and there's a question on that as well from Benjamin. is it possible to configure traceability with business rules as a one-to-many relationship instead of a many-to-many? So kind of use some kind of additional governance to limit, I would say, the traceability.
First of all, I'm 100% sure which Benjamin is asking here.
I think I am too.
With these sorts of questions. So hi, Benjamin. Yeah, one thing is that you can do it by business rules, but some of these things are also parameter guided. So, for instance, if you don't like what I showed you with a defect being linked directly to user stories, that's actually a parameter that is controlling on the workspace, that is controlling that behavior. And there is different behaviors that you can set up the, for instance, automatically tracing setup. But you can also do things on business rules by, if a feature changes, everything that you put underneath a specific application module should trace to this specific feature or this epic or something. And you can either do that based on business rules, or you can do it based on a business rule that actually has a hook. Come on, Jerry, help me here. What are they called?
Webhook.
Webhook, yeah. I got the second part right. A hook. So webhooks. So and I know why Benjamin is also asking, because he's good at the workflow coding in ALM. So but we can really do whatever we want, more or less, inside the platform.
Thank you, Kim. Good answer. Very interesting question from Pivy that came in. And Pivy saying, many organizations aren't purely agile, but they're agile for development. Yet they may deploy new development or fixes in a waterfall way, meaning still doing the big releases. How does Octane support the planning of large releases, meaning hundreds of stories and defects to be deployed at once?
I would more or less say that it's actually not something we are building ALM Octane also for waterfall processes, and one of the big things here is it's very easy to create. I did that 2 weeks ago, a full stage gate model for a rollout of a release, that things need to progress through different stages. There is not just the concept of user stories and backlogs. We have a full requirement system, and the release capabilities are more or less I would say the same as if you are used to using ALM, classic ALM. So there is not many differences in the ability to run waterfall projects in Octane than you could do in ALM. The concepts are there, but of course there could be some things that you need to modify based on flows or the workflows or some rules that you need. But again, creating new workflows inside, let's say for instance a user story or a requirement, is really just dragging and dropping things in, right-clicking and say, I need a new phase here. And on this phase, to move to this phase, you need X, Y, and Z business rule to be, passed. So I will not be afraid of running both waterfall, hybrid, or agile inside Octane. It's built for all of the models.
Very nice. Thank you. A question which we may get a few times. A lot of our customers, of course, and we have a lot of customers using our ALM Quality Center Enterprise solution. Mm-hmm. And sometimes customers kind of think like, well, ALM Octane is the next ALM Quality Center. And Mac has a question related to that. They use ALM 12, which has the BPT framework. So how is it? Is it possible to migrate the tests to Octane? Is Mark asking?
And I think the question right now is no. We are BPT test assets. We are not able to move those over to Octane. But what can I say? Without saying too much, it's there is a big work in progress on how the future will look for that specific BPT use case setup. And if you're working in 1255, I would maybe instead recommend to quickly upgrade to the newest version, 15.5 of ALM, because remember, ALM is by no means going away. We are still getting 20, 25 new customers on ALM each year, like brand new logos on the classical ALM, because what we saw in the last 10 years is IT corporations are moving from waterfall to agile. But what we are seeing now is that pharma companies and manufacturing companies are moving from whatever system, old even like ERP-ish systems. They are moving from Excel and Word, and they are beginning to actually adopt tools like the classic ALM for their waterfall-ish, big scale rollouts of different, for instance, SAP or whatever. So, but back to the BPT question, there's not a direct way with the BPT test assets, at least not yet. I think if you want to learn a bit more on it, we can talk about that in some roadmap session where we might be able to share some more insights on what is happening there. But that's for another meeting. Otherwise, we need to set up 20 slides on you cannot say this, and this is a rolling 3-year roadmap and yada yada yada. So
yes. I think, Kim, we have time for one little last short question. I would say to Mark as well, if you want more information, get in touch with your sales rep or contact us as well. We'll be happy to share the info we have.
Exactly.
I'm going to do one more, I think, depending on how long the answer is. Carmen is asking, is it possible to configure different workflows based on the release type? For example, if I have a hotfix, I want different QA gates than with a complex release type. Can I kind of have these different workflows based on the type of release that I'm having?
Yes, I would say it depends on, first of all, there is 2 different kinds of, when we say workflows. One is the actual phases, what phases should it go through? That's one thing. But the workflow underneath could easily be like different. If you have 6 different defect statuses or different types, they will have to go through different kinds of steps to go through the phases. You can also maybe I know, Carmen, who you are, so we could investigate that. We can do different on the especially on the team level. We can do different phases per team. So how that would actually look like if you're doing multiple phases on multiple different defects, we could investigate that. But in any case, just a quick thing here is that if you define, you could, for instance, define 20 phases that are possible phases to go through inside one specific board, you could say. You can decide which of them are mandatory, which of them are just like you can bypass them. And that also means that I think that we with business rules could see one view with 20 phases where different defects will have to follow different processes through that, through the steps in that setup. So
okay.
I would actually say yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Kim. I'm quickly going to respond to the last question from Stan about migrating from another Agile platform, where, of course, you can also do different customizations. Do we have a recommended path to upgrade to ALM Octane? And do we have templates? I would say we do have common use cases. And of course, our professional services, as I put in my slides, have quite some experience and also some partly, I would say, automated migration options to migrate from specific Agile platforms to ALM Octane. So if you want more information, Stan, I would say get in touch with us and we'll be happy to point you to the right information. Okay. So Kim, I think with that, we are reaching the end of our seminar. I would like to thank you very much for your extensive demo and sharing of information. I would like to wrap up, actually, and call to action. If you're interested really to find out more about Octane, I would highly recommend to go visit our main Octane page on the microfocus.com website, where you will find, not only white papers, but also customer stories, little demo cases, references, talks from other customers, and so on. So a lot of case studies available there. And you see here as well some links to also some interesting case studies from Orange. Kellogg's, for example, is in here as well. What is also a very interesting resource is our YouTube ALM Octane Academy. You will find tons of little movies with an explanation on how to do specific things in ALM Octane. And that can be with links to agile management capabilities, testing capabilities, anything you can do in ALM Octane is explained there in short, very nice educational movies, I would say. Of course, there's also our ADM help page on admhelp.microfocus.com, where you find the full documentation on ALM Octane and also links to some videos as well. So a lot of material. Of course, if you want more information, you can also get in touch with your local sales organization, with your local organization of Microfocus, and we'll be happy to help you further. And with that, I really thank everybody for attending this seminar. I hope it was as useful for you as it was for me. I learned a lot personally. And a big thank you and have a nice day and hope to see you at one of our next webinars. Bye-bye.